Haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chof Tes Amud Beis, starting with Daf Chof Tes Amud Aleph, 13 lines from the bottom, about a third up from the bottom of the Amud. The Gemara established two different opinions at who is the author of our Mishnah, which states Chametz she'ovar alav haPesach shel Nachri is muter bahana, shel Yisrael is aser bahana. Rav Acha bar Yaakov says the Mishnah is authored by Rabbi Yehuda, whereas Rava says the Mishnah is authored by Rabbi Shimon. Says the Gemara, the Hodar Bei Rav Achar bar Yaakov me'ahi. Rav Achar bar Yaakov says that the Mishnah is authored by Rabbi Yehuda. He is Chayzer boy. So the Gemara now brings a brisa with different explanations of the brisa. One of those explanations of Rav Achar bar Yaakov, which indicates that he was Chayzer from his opinion that the Mishnah is authored by Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, the Tanya states in the following brisa, Ha'oichel chametz shel hekdesh b'moyed moal. One who eats hekdesh, chametz shel hekdesh during Pesach, he is chayev mi'ila. V'yesh oimim lo yimoal. Whereas the other opinion says he's not moyel. Now, in order to be chayev mi'ila, so mi'ila has to have, then there's worth to the hekdesh, whereby this chametz of hekdesh must have worth. So the Mefarshim explain over here, we're talking about in the Shita of Rabbi Shimon. Since Rabbi Shimon says that the hekdesh is going to have worth after Pesach, so therefore even right now, it also has worth since he can sell it after Pesach and redeem it after Pesach, whereby it has value. The first opinion says that it's chayev mi'ila because he used that worth, that chametz of hekdesh on Pesach. He ate it. Whereas the second opinion says he's not chayev mi'ila. Why? Because the following. Man yesh oimrim. What is this second opinion that says he's not chayev mi'ila? Omer Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana he. Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana, he is of the Shita that when it comes to the klal, that we say, Kamle b'derabimine. For example, a person who sets a fire on Shabbos and he does it b'mezid with hasra, he does it purposely, and he's going to be chayiv skila for making a fire, one of the lamed tes malachos on Shabbos. That fire causes damage to his neighbor's field. So we have a concept, kam le b'derabimine. He's going to be potter from the chiyuv tashlumin of that nezek, because it's chayiv for the capital punishment of being over a malacha de'araisa on Shabbos. He's chayiv skila. And therefore, the Misas Bezdin will then absolve him of the payment of the mammon. Comes Rav Nechunya ben Hakana and he says, not only is that true when it comes to a chiyuv of Misa b'dei Adam, but even when it comes to a chiyuv of Kores, we'll also say the din of Kamlei b'derabim minei as follows. The Tanya, Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana hayo oise es Yom HaKippurim kishabes l'tashlum. Now Yom HaKippurim does not carry with it a chiyuv skila, doesn't carry with it a chiyuv of Misa b'dei Adam, only a chiyuv of Kores. And therefore, ma Shabbos mischaye ben nafshoy upoter min hatashlum because of Kamlei b'derabim minei. Af Yom Kippur mischai ben nafsho poter mitashlumi. Even Yom Kippur will say the same thing, even though Yom Kippur only has Kores, still it will absolve him of the chiyuv tashlumin. So over here we're saying that the opinion that says he's chayiv mi'ila is because we don't say kamle b'derabim minei. Whereas the second, the Yesh Oimu says, we do say that kamle b'derabim minei, he's potter from mi'ila because he now is only chayiv for the kares. And once you're potter from the payment of the me'ila, because me'ila comes with it a payment of the principal as well as an additional chomesh and a korban, thereby he's going to be potter from all of me'ila. Rav Yosef has a different explanation of this machlokes in the brayso whether you're chayiv me'ila or not. They're arguing whether you can be poider, you can redeem hekdesh and then take it and give it to klavim to eat. The machlokes is whether we say that if you cannot eat it yourself, it cannot be eaten by a Jew, whether you can be poider and still then poider and give it to klavim. Man da'omer mo'al k'sovar poidin es ha'kedeshim la'achilin kilchovim. Uman da'omer loy mo'al k'sovar ein poidin. The machlokes is that the Tana Kama of this brisa that says mo'al, he says that you can, yes, be poidin, therefore it has value. Whereas the other opinion, the Yesh Oim, that says ein mo'al, is because you cannot be poidin, therefore it has no value. Rav Acha bar Rava Tana lo Loho Shmaitze Mishmid Rav Yosef B'Holishna. On top of Chof Tez Amud Beis, he explains the name of Rav Yosef, a different version that was just stated in the name of Rav Yosef. The following version: Dechuli Alma Ein Poidin Es Hagdeshin LaAchilon LeKlovin. Everybody holds that you cannot be poid the Hagdeshin to be fed to Klovim. But what is therefore the machlokes, whether you're going to be moyel or not moyel? Whether you say the value, although that has no value right now, but it will have value after Pesach, therefore it's considered to have value now too. And therefore, man da'omar moal kisover dover hagorim lemamon kimamon dami. Whereas a man da'omar loy moal kisover dover hagorim lemamon lav kimamon dami. That's the machlokes. The one who says moel in the Reisha, the Tana Kama, he holds because now it has value. Since afterwards it will have value, we consider it to have value now as well. Whereas the other opinion says it doesn't have any value because we don't hold this concept of mamon hagorim lemamon is lav kimamon dami. Rav Achar bar Yaakov Omer. Now, this is another explanation of this brisa, and this comes back to the reason why we brought this brisa all together. Because Rav Achar bar Yaakov, we want to say, is chayzer from his opinion that says that our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, as follows: the kuli alma davar hagarin lamoma b'momon dami. Everybody agrees that a davar garin lamoma is kimomon dami, and therefore we have to explain why does the man Omar who says loy mal hold that way? Hare, right now there is value. Because they're arguing about whether you're like Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Shimon. Man damar lo moal ke Rabbi Yehuda, or man damar moal ke Rabbi Shimon. He wants to explain, Rav Achar bar Yaakov, that the one who says that you're not moal holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Since Rabbi Yehuda says lo ye'ochel is a lav, teaching me that after Pesach the chametz has no value. It's osur ba'achila, osur b'hana. Therefore, even now during Pesach, even if you hold the concept of davar hagarim lemamon kemamon dami, but there's no value after Pesach anyways, so there's no value now either. Whereby he'll hold loy moel. Whereas Rabbi Shimon, who says that after Pesach it's yes something that's muter b'hana, therefore right now it also has a value. Whereby indeed you can be chayiv me'ila. Says the Gemara, V'ha Rav Achar bar Yaakov hu da'omar Rav Yehuda yolif sor da'achilim sor da'riya. But wasn't Rav Achar bar Yaakov explaining the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda by saying that Rabbi Yehuda says lo ye'ochel is only an iser d'araisa for after Pesach for a Yisrael, but the chametz of a nochri and of hekdesh that will be muter b'hana and be'achila. Because he learns out achila from re'iyah. Just like re'iyah says, lo yeira lecha, shelcha, your own. But shel nachri and shel hekdesh, you could see it, and he learns out from there, you can also eat it, whereby it's muter ba'achila and muter b'hana. Not only after Pesach, even during Pesach, but certainly after Pesach. So you see from here that indeed, that it must be that Rav Achar bar Yaakov changed his position, and that's what the Gemara points out. Elo choder bei Rav Achar bar Yaakov me'ahi. Rav Achar bar Yaakov changed his understanding of the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore he holds Rabbi Yehuda indeed to say lo ye'ochel is including both an Issur D'Oraisa and Issur Rabbanan, both for a Yisrael's chametz as well as for a Nachri's chametz. Rav Ashi Omar, Rav Ashi brings another explanation of this brisa, whether you're chayiv me'ila or not. He says the kuli alma ein poidin, v'davar hagarein lemamon lav k'mamon dami. If ein poidin, and we also hold davar hagarein lemamon lav k'mamon dami, then the chara, the chametz has no value. How can there be opinion that says that he's chayiv me'ila? V'hocha beplukta Rabbi Yosi Haglili v'Rabbanan kemiflagi, because it's the machlokes in Rabbi Yosi Haglili and the Rabbanan, namely Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Kiman da'omer moal ki Rabbi Yosi. Uman Omar loy moal kerabanan. The one who says moal, like Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi holds that there's no Isser Hana, not during Pesach, and Kol Shekain, not after Pesach as well. And therefore, indeed, this has value on Pesach, whereby you can go ahead and be chayiv mi'ila if a person did eat this hekdesh on Pesach. Says the Gemara Vayter Omar Rav, in regards to chametz that has an admixture, when do we say that it's bottle and when do we say that it's not bottle? Rav says the following: if it's chametz bizmane, if you have chametz that is during Pesach, bein b'mino bein shelo b'mino aser, whether it's the same type or not, namely, let's say you have chametz that is flour, and it's also with chametz that is not flour, that's b'minoi, or chametz that is flour with, let's say, liquid that is not chametz, and that's shelo b'minoi. So he says, in both situations, if it's during Pesach and there's an admixture, then it'll be aser. Shaloi bizmanoi, but if it's after Pesach, then it depends. If it's b'minoi, aser. Shaloi b'minoi mutter. If it's b'minoi, the same type, then it's aser. Otherwise, it is mutter. Gemara now explains the opinion of Rav. B'mai askin, what are we talking about? Ilema b'noisein tam. If we're talking about there's enough of this chametz that is b'noisein tam, then shaloi bizmanoi, shaloi b'minoi mutter. If it's even after Pesach, are you going to say that if it's lo bizmano, it's going to be mutter? Ask the Gemara, ha yahiv taima, but it's enough to be noisein tam, so therefore should it be aser? Ella b'mashu, rather we're talking about a mashu, just a mashu alone, as follows. If it's chametz bizmanoi, going back to a case where it's during Pesach, and now that chametz is mixed with other non-chametz, so is it butter or not butter? Says Rav, bein b'mino bein shaloi b'mino aser. Whether it's b'minoi or it's shaloi b'mino, it is going to be aser. Why? Because Rav l'taimei. Rav goes according to his reasoning that said it somewhere else. The Rav u'shmul damrei travayu called isurin shebetorah b'minoi b'mashu. He says all the time when it comes to isurin shebetorah, we say that even a mashu, it makes it so that it's not nullified. It doesn't come bottle. In other words, this is a sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Shaloi b'minoi b'noisein tam. If it's not b'minoi and it's mixed together, then we say it has to have enough to be noisein tam. If that's the case, then why does he say during Pesach if it's shaloi b'minoi is it also going to be aser? Explains the Gemara, because Rav gozer chametz bizmanoi shaloi b'mino oto b'minoi, because he makes a special gezerah and he says even shaloi b'minoi otu minoi, because since b'minoi means to say that a person is often making a mistake because he's eating chametz during the rest of the year, so on Pesach it's easy to make a mistake with chametz, plus the severity of chametz, it's also chayiv kares, so therefore he makes a gzeira of loi b'mino otu minoi, and says that it's also if it's going to be eaten during Pesach. V'shaloi bizmanoi, if it's after Pesach, then he says a chiluk. If it's b'minoi, then it's aser, Rabbi Yehuda. But if it's shaloi b'minoi, then he says mutter. Then it's mutter, because since it's after Pesach, there's no reason to make a gezerah. It's not going to be chayiv kares. The shaloi b'minoi, otu minoi klihai lo gazrinon. There's no reason to make a gezerah of chametz sha'ovar alav Pesach, since it will not carry with it the punishment of kares. That's the shita of Rav when it comes to mixtures of chametz. Shmuel says, chametz bizmanoi, if it's chametz during Pesach, b'minoi aser, shaloi b'minoi mutter. He makes a chiluk, and he says only if it's b'minoi is aser. Shaloi bizmanoi, then he says, bein b'minoi, bein shaloi b'minoi, it's mutter. So he's more mekil than Rav, and the Gemara explains his opinion. Chametz bizmanoi b'minoi aser. Why during Pesach does he say b'minoi is aser? And we're talking about a mashu, and it's not nullified even by mashu because Shmuel l'taimei. Because Shmuel goes according to his reasoning that's said elsewhere. The Rav u'shmuel damrei travayu kol isurin shebat Torah b'minoi asurin b'mashu shaloi b'minoi b'noisein tam. If it's b'mino, then it's going to be aser b'mashu, and therefore it's not nullified. Whereby, therefore, in Pesach also, the chametz is going to be b'minoi. It's also not going to be nullified. and they're going to be osir. If it's shaloi b'mino, however, it needs b'noisein tam. Shaloi b'minon otu minon lagazer, and he does not make a gzeir like Rav did, and therefore he's chadik, and he says shaloi b'minoi during Pesach is mutter. Shaloi b'zmanoi chametz after Pesach bein b'minon bein shaloi b'minon mutarin, but it's after Pesach. Then he says they're both mutter. Ki Rabbi Shimon, because he holds the sheet of Rabbi Shimon. It says after Pesach, since it's mutter midi araisa, therefore there's going to then be mutter over here as well. So he's cholek on Rav in that regard as well. Rabbi Yochanan Omar, Rabbi Yochanan said, chametz bizmanoi, if it's chametz during Pesach, then he says, bein b'mino, bein shaloi b'mino, also b'noisein tam. A mashu, it would be nullified. It needs a noisein tam to be osir. Shaloi b'zmanoi, bein b'mino, bein shaloi b'mino, mutter. Then he's mekel. And now the Gemara explains his shita. And he explains as follows. Chametz b'zmanoi, if it's chametz during Pesach, bein b'mino, bein shaloi b'mino, it needs noisein tam. Why noisein tam? Because he's cholek. He doesn't hold like Rav and Shmuel that they hold like Rabbi Yehuda. He holds like the Chachamim who are arguing Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yochanan l'taimei, the Gemara explains. Rabbi Yochanan goes according to his shita. The Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish Damrei Travayu Kol Isun Shebator Bein B'minon Bein Shaloi B'minon B'noisein Tam. It requires enough that is noisein tam. Again, the shita of the Chachamim who are chayilkin on Rabbi Yehuda. Shaloi bizmanoi, and therefore, if it's bizmanoi during Pesach only, if it's going to be a noisein tam, that is b'mino, it's going to be osir. That's the shita of Rabbi Yochanan. Sorry, bein b'mino, bein shaloi b'mino. If it's noisein tam, it's going to be osir, even shaloi b'mino. But if it's shaloi bizmanoi, if it's chametz that's after Pesach, then bein b'mino, bein shaloi b'mino, mutarin ki Rabbi Shimon. He's maker like Rabbi Shimon, like we saw that Shmuel holds. That Rabbi Shimon holds, since it's not also midiaraisa after Pesach, therefore he says that there's no iser bein b'mino shemilot bein b'shalom b'mino after Pesach.